Welcome, adventurer, to the Drunken Dragon. My name is Bledik, and I'm the founder and creative director of Drunken Dragon Games. Today, we're gonna go through a deep dive of the high-level concept of Drunken Dragon Inns Quests, the game that we're creating. But before that, I would like to state that our mission is to create an epic universe to experience and share our love for fantasy. This means that Drunken Dragon is not a game, is not a crypto project. We're more than that. We are a universe. We want to create something truly epic. We want to create a place for all of us to share stories, experience adventure, and make old and new friends. The Drunken Dragon is a place to belong. So please, if you love fantasy, if you like new technologies, if you like collecting, please head out to Discord. I invite you, and we'll receive you with a mug in the air and loves and stories, and we will be happy to share this adventure together. But let's get going and start talking about Drunken Dragon Inns Quests, the game that we're creating. For that, first, let me tell you about the world. Drunken Dragon Inns Quests, it's gonna be a game about exploring the world of Valia. This is a deep fantasy world, rich in pixel art, adventure, dangers, cities, and societies. The first game will be developed in the region of Theolden, a merciless land with a lot of monsters and towns that barely are able to survive. Drunken Dragon Inns Quests, I really wanted to be a game about you being in the world, about you having a tavern of an inn, of a fantasy inn, full of adventures, full of interesting furniture, and a role within your society. I really want it to be a game that is fun because you're part of it, because you're part of a fantasy world, and it's all about the experiences that you live inside of it. The world is mostly divided into two alternative realities or parallel realities. What we call the Eternal Realms and what we call the Mortal Realms. These are basically two game modes. The Eternal Realms is a collector's mode, is the place where you're gonna be able to expose your collection of adventurers, furniture, and other things. And the adventure mode will be the mode which actually has gameplay, which actually has a living market and actually has quests to do and multiplayer, etc. But let's once again deep dive into those concepts. As some of you know, we're right now in alpha. That means we have created a first platform where you can start experiencing and giving feedback, start experiencing the things that we're building one step at a time. It's also a place for us to develop iteratively. So that means that we won't wait years of development before you can see something, but we will be pushing concepts, things, and you'll be testing them out, giving feedback constantly. That is because in Drunken Dragon Games we have a strong commitment to quality, transparency, and community involvement, and we want to make you part of each step within this adventure. The Eternal Realms is basically the experience that you can already have in the alpha. If you head out to drunkendragon.games, you'll be able to download it, and if you own some of our collectibles, you'll be able to place them and create a beautiful diorama. This will be basically a place for you to display your collection, but something which is super important is the fact that this will be a safe place for you to own the collectibles without breaking the gameplay. We're integrating NFT technologies, and we're very excited about it, but we also care a lot about gameplay. And some danger that we have when we introduce NFTs is that we're introducing real-world economy into the game economy, and that can cause something that we gamers sometimes fear, which is pay to win. This is something we definitely don't want our game to be plagued with. We're really making a big effort into making sure that the game is fun before and foremost. The Eternal Realms will be a place for you to display not just your collection, but also your achievements in the Mortal Realms. You'll see soon that the Mortal Realms, then again, will have the main game loop, which is having an inn, going to the world, having adventures, trading, creating adventurers will be able to even die. Maybe furniture will be destroyed. But all of those achievements that you gain from the adventurers will be able to be saved within the Eternal Realms. You'll never lose your collectible. That's super important. All of your NFTs, you'll always own them, and you'll always be able to play them. In the Eternal Realms, you basically collect. This means you can collect adventurers, furniture, vanity inns, and other projects that we're developing within this fantasy universe. Your collectibles will be displayed in one of your taverns or fantasy inns. An important mechanic is that things in the adventure mode or collectibles from the Eternal Realms can be transferred into the Mortal Realms, and things from the Mortal Realms can be transferred into the Eternal Realms, but they never exist in both. They have to exist on one of them. So, for example, you'll own one of these adventurers, and you'll send them into the Mortal Realms as a level 1 adventurer. You'll be able to play with it, send it into adventures, send it out in the world, level up. And if you're so unfortunate that he dies, and let me be clear about this, for an adventurer to die, you'll have to be exposed to a lot of danger, and there'll be ways to rescue the adventurer if it dies, but more of that later. If it dies for good, it comes back to the Eternal Realms, and it will come back with all of the achievements. That means the maximum level achieved, the things it killed, the certain achievements or trophies that he was able to accomplish through his life in the Mortal Realms. And you'll be able to display it in your Eternal Realm Inn with all of those achievements, right? So I hope to see in the game certain competitions on who has the highest level Puri, for example. And if you do, you'll be able to show it in your Eternal Realm Inn. Also, you'll be able to transfer from the adventure mode new adventurers and new furniture that you create over there into the Eternal Realms, and in the process you will mint NFTs. This is so that you can trade them with your friends. The reason why we're integrating NFTs is because we think it's really cool the freedoms that NFTs gives back to the user. I'm talking about those times where we used to collect trading cards or miniatures, and even though we bought them from a company, we were free to trade the repeated ones, sell them if you want, buy others, exchange them in between us. So I personally think this is really cool, and this is what new technologies are bringing, and I think this is awesome. So we want you to earn NFTs by beating really hard things or really hard challenges in the Mortal Realms. And once you've been able to gain this precious opportunity of creating them into NFTs, you'll truly own them. This is of course only if they move from the adventure mode into the from the adventure mode or Mortal Realms into the collector's mode or Eternal Realms. Then if you trade it, someone else can receive it, but if he starts using it in the adventure mode, it will start from level 1. So one core value that we have about NFTs is owning more NFTs should not be pay to win, but should give you a wider range of strategies and builds and ways of playing the game. So I really hope that the Eternal Realms becomes this home for everything you achieve and do through the game, and for you to also create a very aesthetic place, independent of all the limitations of gameplay. Which, well, these limitations in gameplay that we put in adventure mode, they're just to make the game fun, right? But this is a creative part of the game. Also, in the future, we'll also sell collectibles of the taverns themselves. Through the years, we'll visit each region in our world, and every region will be very deep in lore and it will have its own flavor and its own color palette in a sense, and will offer you the ability to collect these different taverns, different shapes, different sizes, and with different decoration around it, and I think it's gonna be epic. With this, let me talk about the Mortal Realms. The Mortal Realms is the place where adventure truly begins. In the adventure mode or Mortal Realms, you own one of these fantasy inns in a location on a persistent world. Once you have this and you have a group of adventurers, you can create parties of adventurers and send them into the world. In the world, you'll basically explore, find interesting things, gain loot, and come back into the inn to make the inn better and be able to expand and aim for more dangerous adventure. When going out into the world, there's basically 3 things that you'll do. You'll explore, find something, and loot. Here's a reference picture of a game called Battle Brothers. It's a really fun game, but I wanted to use it as a reference to explain how you're gonna traverse the world. This unit here represents your party. So your party will be made of between 1 to 5 adventurers. And you'll be able to move around the world. The world will be dangerous, there'll be a lot of interesting things to encounter, and there'll be other players to also to encounter. You'll see in a moment that one of our core values is to make the world very interesting and rich, and also hard to traverse. We think that for a game to be fun, there must be certain challenges or certain hurdles that you need to go through. So, for example, we're planning the adventurers to have exhaustion or have to eat food in order to keep moving, right? So if you're not able to cook good enough food, or if you're not buffed enough, or the stats of your adventurers is not good enough, they won't be able to go to the most harsh and dangerous locations. Also, for us, something super important is the in-game market. We wanted to have a complex economy where everything created is provided by one player or crafted by one player. Crafting will also have a huge role within our game. Then there will come the moment in which you'll encounter something. This will come in different ways. A lot of times it look in the form of an actual combat. We will create another video where we're gonna show our idea of combat, but we want the combat to feel strategic and at the same time accelerating. So please check out the other video where we talk a bit more about combat. Also, please take into consideration that we are constantly iterating, and our priority is to make something fun, interesting for you, and very immersive within a fantasy world, and make it very social. So a lot of these concepts are high level because we will be testing out our ideas with you, and we will be changing them as we see fit, then again with the only objective of making something truly special. Once you've gone out in the world, you'll find all that juicy loot, which a lot of time will come in the form of materials. So let me talk about the type of adventures that you should expect from going out in the world. First, there's a hack and slash. That means you just want to go out and find things to kill. You'll have plenty things to kill outside in the world. Then there's Dungeon Dwell. As any good fantasy world, it requires dungeons which will be hard to traverse, and challenges within different layers. Sometimes you'll want to go into a dungeon, explore it, hunt a bit, and whenever you find a level within the dungeon that is too hard for you, you might want to return later. Also, there are gonna be certain story-driven adventures or quests. This will come in the form of unlocked by owning certain adventurers, or by raising the reputation of your inn enough so that these story-driven quests and adventures are offered to you. Also, something important is the node gathering. So outside in the world, there will be nodes. So for example, let's say some mine of mithril. The rarer the material, the harder it will be for you to gather it, including the monsters and things around it. So you will need to escort your gatherers in order to extract those precious materials. Also, your adventurers they'll have to be trained within or have enough perception in order to find these rare materials through the world. Also, there'll be RPG encounters. This means that while your party is out in the world, there'll be random encounters which sometimes you'll be able to solve without going into battle. Something important is that the world will be shared with other players. We might be within a gray area to be considered a proper MMORPG. But for us it's also important to cater for the single player notion of adventure, but still share a world with thousands of players in a complex economy. So we will have a certain type of sharding in which the world will be shared with a certain amount of other players, but within towns and within the markets of the towns, everything will be shared. So one game that does something similar is Sea of Thieves, where you go into the ocean and you'll encounter many players, but these do not represent all of the players that are connected. They're just enough for you to feel that you're part of a living world. Also, we care a lot about the market and the game economy, as we said. That's why each town traveling will matter, and each town will have its local market where players will be able to sell its resources and their loot, and there will be trading. So there'll be the ability for you to buy cheap in one town and then take the goods to another town where some other materials are not very common. Also, the distribution of resources across the world will be uneven. This means that there will be some lands which are rich on, let's say, silver, and then there will be other lands where undead are very common, but silver is not very commonly encountered. So silver will be on high demand on that area, and there'll be an incentive for players to buy cheap silver in other towns and try to escort these caravans to sell them into these towns. Also, the world will feature open PvP on certain areas. So we also want to implement security areas like in EVE Online, where there's areas with very important materials and adventures, but with low security, and where other adventurers, other players might try to actually encounter it, not be very friendly in a sense. And there'll be also safer places where there's gonna be high security enforced by the guards of the area, and these areas will still be of interest. Something that we like a lot is, for example, Albion Online, where everything is expendable, but every material is required at every level of the game. So we want even the starting zone materials to be useful for everyone in the game. And we want to create markets where there's constant demand for things that crafters create. So I think it's going to be very fun to live in this world and expand what we're going to talk about now, which is the inn. In the inn, you basically you can expand. You can improve your inn by improving the infrastructure, then gaining reputation from having a better inn, and from that finding better adventurers or equipping your adventurers better. Every room within your inn will have a certain role. So there's gonna be kitchens, there's gonna be crafting rooms for alchemy, carpentry, blacksmithing. There'll be common areas for your adventurers to live on, and living quarters as well. And there'll be inns of a lot of types and flavors across the world. Within your inn, you'll be able also to gain passive income from receiving patrons, may them be local folk or other players that are looking maybe to have a rest. Maybe they're actually in, it's very far away, so they need to buff up again, recharge their stamina. Rest to not be exhausted and go into battle with certain debuffs, or they're looking to buy beverages or food which give very specific types of buff for the type of adventure that they'll have near them. We want the inns to be your headquarters and to feel like a home for your adventurers in a world of dangers. But also we want the inns to be very strategic. The location will be very strategic. There'll be inns nearby big metropolis or within big metropolis or big towns, which will be very safe and with a lot of traffic of other players. But also there'll be inns that are far away into the wilds or near, really close to adventure. This will come with trade-offs, so they will normally be a bit smaller or harder to defend, but also there'll be an opportunity for you to offer hospitality and offer buffs for the adventurers that are going to nearby dungeons or to gather nearby resources or venture into very specific areas which only your inn has nearby. So with this, I would like to talk about our design principles for the game. These are our core values on how we think about creating this game, and how our decisions will be guided. First, the idea of exploration and adventure. The outworld has costs, dangers, limitations, and incentives. Exploring feels rewarding, and there is choice of the level of risk-taking. For us, it is super important that going out into the world feels great. Either by you choosing different types of adventures, by just exploring, or by interacting with other players. Then there is another super important thing for us, and this ties really closely to our mission statement, is fantasy and immersion. We do want to create a fun game, but also we want to make a game which is great because it feels great to not just play it, but to be in it, to be part of it. I want myself and other people to feel like they wish they could live within this world, and in a sense the game mechanics and the game systems to somehow enable a bit of that. So each quest, item, and collectible should tell a story, the story of Valia, and really make a spark within you and your imagination, and that that awe of fantasy. Also, we will always like to cater to two type of players. This is what we call progression choice. So we want to cater always to the type of player who likes high risk, high reward, that likes fast but inconsistent progression. And also, we like to cater to the player that likes to grind and invest into a slow but steady progression. I know myself that I love both types of gameplays. So sometimes I just like my efforts to pay off slowly but surely. And I think this type of play of way of playing will fit a lot of the crafters, a lot of the players that like go hunting. But also there's a high risk, high reward, which will involve PvP or really far away adventures for dragons that have dragon scales, which are really valuable because are hard to get, but create some amazing armor and swords, which might be played with PvPers, etc. Also, as I said before, we're integrating NFTs, but our idea with NFTs is that NFTs should give you a myriad of gameplay strategies or builds, but never pay to win. Then there's also this idea of single player, but massively enhanced by multiplayer features. So we're focused on creating an amazing single player experience, then again massively enhanced by the multiplayer aspects. So this is what I talked about. When you're within the world, you might encounter other players randomly, and you'll be able to share the encounters with them or encounter them, and you have a massive complex economy to be part of with other players. And there's systems that we have in mind that I think will also encourage players to play together. So, for example, we're thinking about a type of contract system within the game, where players can create parties together, and they'll set the terms of their party beforehand, and the game will enforce these terms. So, for example, let's say that I'm a gatherer, and I don't have the best adventurers, but I really want to gather some rare mithril. So I can open a contract for a player to escort me into gathering and go together in search of this mithril. And within the contract we can set things like no PvP between us, or I'll keep all the mithril, you'll keep all of the rest of the loot, or as soon as we return, I'll pay you X amount for unit of mithril, and the game will basically just trigger and enforce this type of terms. So with this, we hope that we enable our last principle, which is every player should find a role within its community. So we're really looking forward for the economy and the activities within the game to be complementary between them, so that players find a place within the world of Valia. Then again, enabled by our contract system, we hope that there are players which are well known for being really good at escorting other players, or players which are very good at holding things or adventuring together, etc. We're working really hard to create a game which is all about fantasy immersion, about being part of a community of other players that love fantasy and love collecting things and love having adventures and love crafting and trading and going out into dungeons and killing rare and hard monsters and brewing beer and cooking meals of magic power and crafting armor and finding rare herbs, serving patrons in a beautiful inn where laughs and music are shared. This is then again a project which is all about our love for fantasy, and thank you for being part of this adventure. I cannot wait to keep deploying more and more features into the game and to hear everything that you think about the things that we're creating together. So I invite you then again to come to Discord. We'll receive you with a mug in the air and open arms. Welcome to the Drunken Dragon. Cheers, adventurer.